It's Tommy on tap, baby!
I'm a man! I'm 40!
Gonna bite a kneecap off?
On the last play of the game!
It's Tommy on tap.
Welcome back to Tommy on Tap. I'm Bob. I'm with my brother Kevin and our dad Tom. Tommy, what do you have on tap for us today?
Football, and more football. What a great week last week with some upsets in college football, some great games. The NFL never disappoints. There were 57% of the games, 9 of the 16 games were settled by one possession games. There was, I think it was 5 games that were decided by a field goal or less, 1 4-point game, a couple of 7-point games, and an 8-point game. So, just a possession and a 2-point conversion, in that one. So just some great ones and some great upsets in college football. And I think it leads to really, really big games this week, both the NFL and college.
Yeah, I know we talked last week about how we thought the Lions had played the best and then they followed it up this week with just trash play. And then in the fourth quarter, they decided to try to put it on and get close. But it was same old Lions at that point. I think they're just disappointing. I think they're better than that. I mean, again, though, I like to sit back and see how do we respond to it. And I really loved how Dan Campbell answered critics, if you will, or pundits, because he said, hey, listen, I've got to get with Aaron Glenn. And I think what was neat is last year when there was a problem on the offensive side of the ball, he took the bull by the horns and corrected it. And I think he's going to do the same thing here. And I think his comment was, we have to simplify. So I think what he saw was that defensively we're too complicated. So in critical situations, we're not playing well in those critical situations. And I think in an appropriate way, he was saying to Aaron Glenn, hey, I'm going to be involved. Aaron Glenn's still his guy. Aaron Glenn is considered one of the best young coaches and potential head coach. But I like the fact that Dan Campbell doesn't sit back. He takes charge. So I'm looking forward to this one. This game in New England, both these football teams, and obviously for our guys, but New England as well. So it's going to be fun traveling to Foxborough for a big ball game. Yeah, one thing I hope we don't lose on the Lions is on the defense is the attitude and bringing the pressure, but definitely some busted coverages that need to be fixed on the back end to make that worthwhile. But I enjoy the amount of pressure that Glenn wants to bring, but hopefully balancing that with some simplicity helps out.
And I hope we don't get away from our aggressiveness on offense. Sometimes you think the answer
is playing well. Yeah,
offense is playing well. I mean, so let's not try to fix one thing by reducing the effectiveness of another. Because the NFL, I think if anything, we're headed in the right direction in that regard. That we're scoring points, we're creative, we utilize our personnel, we make it difficult for other defenses to defend us, and I hope we stay in that vein moving forward.
Yeah, that's where I want to chime in, though, is I am concerned that this will be the week that people figure out how to stop that Lions offense, because Bill Belichick is famous for deciding what it is that you do well and then making you beat him in a different way. So he'll figure out what Ben Johnson is doing with his offense and the scheme that he's putting together, and Belichick, I think over this week, is probably going to figure out what exactly it is that's setting this offense apart from where it was last year. And I'm concerned. I hope that obviously the offense keeps doing well, but it'll be interesting to see what Belichick does.
Well, one of the things I think that's setting this offense apart from last year and from other offenses in the league, and why they're ranked near the top in a lot of categories, is especially when Swift is healthy and stuff like that, they have the ability to run the ball, and Goff has proven that he can pass the ball, especially when those wide receiver targets are there. And so, what Belichick will do is make them one-dimensional and force them to lean on one game. And if the athletes are healthy, I think the Lions can potentially dictate to them that you can't treat us that way. You have to play us straight up, and I think it'll be difficult. Belichick is smart, and he's gonna make it difficult. But yeah, Goff has been making incredible throws. He's been making really good decisions. He's been, the complete opposite of who he was 2 years ago at the Rams, and much improved over who he was last year with the Lions. And the run game's looking good. We got a stable of backs that can rotate in there, and I think that it's going to be the way you take something away and dictate to them is make them one-dimensional. I don't know that you can make the Lions one-dimensional.
Especially because we have the weapons we have are versatile. And I think the way we're attacking people is not just one dimensional. Not only are we running the ball, but we run it in different ways. We get the ball on the edges. We throw the ball in different ways. If St. Brown and Swift can play, and if Hawkinson continues to develop, nice to get Chark back. I think Reynolds is effective. There's some things there that are going to make it tough for a defense to say, here's what we're going to do. So, hey, hopefully, and then if our defense is ever going to step up and play well, this is the offense to do it against, because they're just the opposite of what we just talked about with the Lions. They are a one-dimensional unit that's going to try to run the football and have play action pass, and they don't even have their number one quarterback. So,
yeah, and I don't know if we want to keep this on NFL and go to college later, if we're going to talk topically about poor defenses. But man, ready to switch to talking about Michigan State if we're on board with that.
Yeah, well, I think one last thing though, if you look at the NFL games, there are just some big ones out there. I think the Rams-Cowboy game is a big game. The Cowboys are surprising people, without Dak.
And is Dak coming back this week? And they got to make a choice, or he's still out?
I think
okay.
Cooper, and I think the Rams. You commented on it Monday night, Kevin. I don't think Stafford's played as poorly as he played in that game in a long time. So that game is big. You look at the Raiders-Chiefs game, can the Chiefs be consistent? The Browns have a big game and the Chargers have a big game. Both of them have aspirations. How do the Dolphins bounce back against the Jets? I mean, there's a lot of big football games. And I'm not the biggest, pro football fan other than the Lions, but I think there are some big games. The Bengals-Raven game jumps right in there, too, is a very important football game for both of them. So,
especially being divisional.
Yeah, but it is pretty good stuff, but I don't know where you go on college if Bobby's good with that.
Yeah, I think with the NFL too, this is a good point. There is this teams are 1-3, 2-2, 3-1, or 4-0. I don't know if there's any 4-0 anymore, but the point is, this is you're a quarter of the way. You're a quarter of the way through the season, basically. This is a huge week that if you've been struggling, you got to start putting it together if you're going to be a legitimate contender. So,
yep. Yeah, there's some historical numbers there, like even the 1-3 starts. You just don't make the playoffs when you start 1-3 usually, so you better get it right pretty quick.
All right, well, I'm fine with putting a pin in on the NFL there if we want to move along to college. Kevin, you began to start the college topic there with Michigan State and their defense. Not a whole lot of D.
Yeah, I was able to find a babysitter, took my son to that game, had sweet seats. I didn't realize how short he was. Had to move up to some less sweet seats so that he could actually see what was going on, but it gave a great kind of view of the game. I will say, first, Michigan State defense didn't look good. They got throttled, and honestly, Thorne didn't play great. The offense didn't play great, but a lot of the things that I had seen on defense the past couple of weeks seemed improved. It seemed less of coverage busts and mistakes, and more just the Michigan State defense. And Scotty Hazelton seems to have conceded the fact that we cannot play cover one against anybody. We're going to get beat on the outside. We're going to live in cover three. And it was just, slow matriculation down the field, right? Short passes a lot of times. There were some busts and some big plays by Maryland as well. But it was like, death by 1,000 cuts moving the ball down the field, and we couldn't stop anything on third down. But it didn't seem as much of coverage busts and more just, playing a bend but don't break, and we bent and we bent and we bent, and then we gave up a touchdown at the end. It was frustrating. To watch the game.
When we built so much on defense in the past, to see how poorly we've played on defense last year and then now this year, even with all the additions and some expectation change there, that's really frustrating.
Already traveled well, though. I think a quarter of the stadium was green. It was pretty cool to see. I heard a few, no chants, but a few yells and calls for, fire Scotty. But they didn't last. I think people are staying. They're going to trust the system and give it a little bit more time and understand where we're at. But, obvious frustration. But the key thing, talking to a lot of the guys there too, was just, it's the most frustrating part, and Tom, that's what you just alluded to, was for years it was the Spartan Dog defense and what D'Antonio and Narduzzi were doing. The offense might not even score a touchdown in the game, and we'd still win by 2 touchdowns because of the defense, and that's a far cry from what we're seeing on the field now. It's just
well,
real
the
frustrating.
chances that we get healthy this week are slim to none. I mean, Ohio
and we
State
have Ohio State. Yeah, I mean,
the only
it could be
advantage we have
70
is we're at
points,
home.
man.
Yeah, it could get ugly fast, but I think that's why we do just got to stay the course, and it is what it is. Got to stay true, and it's just frustrating.
I will say this: I haven't heard about any decommits.
Okay,
I don't follow it close. They pop up on my feed because based on my searches, Google's got me pinned, but I haven't heard of any decommits based on how we're performing. And I've seen, last week's, not counting Maryland, the loss before that, we signed a 4-star, I believe, or I got a 4-star commit, right? So
4-star DB.
So, that's good to hear, but how long does that last? And
sure. Yep, no question. Well, and on that regard, State was disappointing, but boy, were there some great college football games. And it was funny because Bobby and I were in the woods in a location where there was virtually no bars for our T-Mobile service that him and I had. And so we'd all of a sudden pull our phone out, pop it up, and I'm like, my God, Georgia's down 12 in the fourth quarter. And,
yeah, that was nuts. Yeah.
TCU spanked Oklahoma, and then I'd lose service, and I couldn't even follow up on what it was. So it was a comeback home and watch games in replay, on all the networks during the week. So it was pretty nuts. But there were some crazy games.
I got back home from Maryland Stadium there about 7:30 or something, I think, and turned on the Georgia game, and it was Mizzou was up still at that point, and it was like, wow, okay. So and I wondered at the time, is this enough for Alabama to jump them? And it wasn't, it was like it'll probably be close. It was real close in the AP rankings, by a couple points or something. Yeah, maybe 10 points or something. It was interesting.
Well, in Bama, it was not only tight losses, upsets, surprises, but then the injury to Bryce Young, which they're still saying today. I think Nick Saban said it's day to day. He's doing some things, but day to day. So you look at that game as the big grudge match now. A&M's coming off another, I guess you could call it an embarrassing loss.
Bobby called it though.
Yeah, he did. We got to get into that.
At some point, you got to put our stats up on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't do well.
there were some tight ones and some big losses there too.
I would say that if Bryce Young is out and Bama happens to lose to A&M and Bryce Young comes back before the end of the season, they're still going to end up number 4 somehow in the CFP and get in there if they win out after losing to A&M without Bryce Young.
Yeah, and especially, to get there, you got to go through Georgia anyway, for the SEC playoffs. So, yeah, both of them could have a stinker and still end up in it because of who they are and what they represent. So, but even in the morning, when I woke up, I still didn't know for sure. And I can remember we were up early and I hollering at Bobby saying, Georgia survived, but I was amazed.
And Georgia Tech knocked off Pitt with their interim.
The upset.
That's a terrible loss for Narduzzi because he had it, he had everything in front of him.
Yeah, they're just battling with some injuries too, I think, and they overlooked him. I think you got to believe that.
It's like I'm interested to see how Wisconsin will fare for the rest of the season.
That was the shocker, I think, of the weekend that they fired Paul Chris. Like, what?
Certainly, Wisconsin is not going to be happy about losing to Illinois 34-10. But
sure,
jumping off of Paul Chris there is quite the. Okay, but conspiracy theories. It's got to be Leopold, right? They got to just be making a move to say, he won how many championships at Wisconsin Whitewater? He's from Wisconsin. This is the year that he's going to go somewhere.
Yeah, I scoffed at the idea that he would go to Nebraska. I think it's totally feasible he would go to Wisconsin. I can imagine if you were born in Wisconsin, grew up in Wisconsin, and are a coach, you dream about coaching it in Madison.
Right.
And so to be able to do that, I think is perfectly feasible that's where he could end up, or you see how the money shakes out. But
just from Wisconsin's perspective, though, I would think that they looked at it and said that guy's going to be coaching somewhere other than Kansas next year.
Let it be here then. Yeah,
we want it to be here. Here's $16 million to Paul Chris. Dad, before I saw you were saying something, but Paul Chris and Bo Pelini had the same record on their date of firing.
Yeah, that's what I saw. You sent that stat. I guess I was just surprised that even if I want Lance Leopold, I'm surprised they fire Paul Chryst now. I just think it was a rash move because, for one, you're not guaranteed Leopold's going to go, but it's not like somebody's going to hire Leopold now. I mean, the season's going to end, and then he's going to look around. And if he knows, if he hears any inkling that the Wisconsin job might come open, which that word could get out pretty easily without firing Paul Chryst.
And they put Jim Leonard as the interim. Now, Jim Leonard seems like a fine guy, but their defense it's not like their defense has been performing well and the offense has been underperforming. They have not been performing well on either side of the ball. Right.
Yeah. Jim's just a respected coach, and I was really surprised. I don't know. That's not the kind of move Barry Alvarez made. As a matter of fact, when Barry Alvarez, Paul Chryst had moved off and went to Pitt, he's there for a year. He's kind of handpicked to come back, to be the guy, when that job came open. So I was really surprised.
Where do you think he ends up?
I'm not sure. I mean, he was. I think he enjoyed, but he'll end up in the MAC somewhere probably.
Arizona State.
Hey,
that'd be a good hire.
I don't know.
What is it? That I don't know.
Chryst is a system guy, so that might be strange, but we'll see.
All right, guys. Well, let's we're gonna do a little bit of a shorter show this time. So just to make sure that we have enough time to discuss all these games, let's go through our what are we on? Week 6 now. Week 6 college football pick'ems. We've got
it's almost over.
It goes so fast. Once it gets going, it takes a couple weeks for it to turn into like conference play, and then it's gone.
Well, baseball playoffs are already starting. It's nuts.
Right.
Yep. Well, and Aaron Judge got to 62, right?
Yep.
Yes, he did. So that starts on Friday, I think, or maybe Thursday to Friday, I believe.
All right. So let's.
What did you do last week, Bobby? I think you were 3-1, right?
I don't know. I don't have the tally for this right now, but
I mean, I know
we'll
that
have to keep a running
game wrong.
Season.
I picked the UCLA game for my surprise football game, but
I got one right out of the choices we had, and then I got my pick 'em right, so I got 2.
Yeah, I think Bobby got 4.
The first game that we're gonna do this week is number 17 TCU and number 19 Kansas. What do we think?
I really want it to be Kansas. I think TCU wins this game. I was real impressed with.
Right?
Yep, it's in Lawrence with College Game Day in Lawrence.
I'll stick with Kansas here. I think TCU is a surprise team. I know they got the SMU staff from last year, but I'll keep riding the Jayhawk Rock Chalk Jayhawk for right now.
I'm rooting for the Jayhawks. I think TCU is going to win this game.
I'm going to root for them and pick them.
I'm gonna pick out of emotion as well and go with Kansas.
All right.
The next game being number 8 Tennessee and number 25 LSU. What do you think, Tom?
Well, this one, my big question was, is the game being played at night? Because when you go down to Death Valley at 8 o'clock at night, it's trouble. But the fact that I think it's a noon start, maybe a 3:30 start, I think Tennessee's a better team right now, offensively and defensively. I think they pull this out, even though I'm really going against all the odds here because Tennessee hasn't beat LSU, I don't believe, in a while. But I'm going to go with Tennessee.
I don't think that Brian Kelly has it figured out yet, and I'll go Tennessee as well.
Yeah. I just said last point on that. It's a noon start. If it was 8 o'clock in Death Valley, I'd be all over LSU, but can't do it this week.
Yep, I think we're all Brian Kelly fans. We hope he succeeds. He don't succeed this year. Not winning this game.
Not this one, I don't think.
The Vols got it. And let's, as much as Tennessee fans were upset when Tennessee hired Heupel, I think he's proven a lot of them wrong. They'll never admit it because they're insane fans, but I think Tennessee wins this.
Yep.
All right, next game is unranked Arkansas versus the old pirate number 23 Mississippi State.
Tough one.
Yeah, I think Mississippi State, I think the Cowbells roar here. Mississippi State they've got the offense. Defensively, they're playing well. And again, now you are playing when you go down there and they start rattling those damn cowbells and getting into it like they are hard to beat, man. And I'll pick Mississippi State.
Yeah, I haven't made my decision until right now. Arkansas is coming off of 2 losses?
Yep.
Back-to-back?
Back-to-back losses.
I'm going to go with Arkansas, Razorbacks.
Ooh.
Talking about Arkansas, the two losses that they're coming off are A&M and Alabama.
Yeah, Mississippi State's like a what are you going to get each week kind of game.
Right. Yeah, Arkansas losing to Alabama is what it is. They lost 23-21 to Texas A&M. I agree with you, Kevin. Coming off of those two losses, I think that, Sam Pittman has a good program there, and I don't think that they had any intentions on being unranked at any point this year. I think it's going to be a big bounce-back game, and I think that Arkansas will keep them uncomfortable and get the win.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one for me. I'm still going Arkansas, but this is about the time in a progression at a staff where Mike Leach really starts putting it on, and it's going to be close, I think, but I'm going with Arkansas, like I said. So,
all right, and our last one before we get to the wild cards here: number 11 Utah and number 18 UCLA.
Well, I'll start with this because this is going to lead into my wild card. Listen, I think Utah is going to host USC next week, and I think they're just looking and salivating for that game. I think they hope that game day's there. I think that UCLA at home against Utah, with them overlooking them just enough, and I think UCLA is tougher than people think. I'm going to pick UCLA again. I like the way they play. I like their quarterback. I like their running back. I like their coach. I think defensively they're better than people may think, and I think just enough of Utah overlooking them is going to be the difference. So I got UCLA.
Kevin, who you got?
So last week when we talked about when Tommy brought up UCLA, I wasn't tracking that they were sitting at 4-0. Kind of a sleeper kind of a team. I did watch them play last week. And I liked what I saw. I agree with Tom. I think UCLA is winning this game.
So I want to take this opportunity to kind of point out the Pac-12 right now. With I know that USC and UCLA are leaving, but right now you've got Washington at like 21, and then everybody else is top 20, right? You got UCLA at 18, Oregon at 12, Utah at 11,
Utah,
USC all the way up
USC's
at number
up there.
6. I mean,
Washington State, are they still ranked, or did Washington State?
No,
fall
Washington
out?
State is 4-1 but unranked.
They've
They
got
have
to be
USC
number
this week,
26, right? But
Yeah.
Well, it's like the perfect example of like when your girlfriend says she's gonna leave you, so you start like combing your hair right and shaving
Right.
and brushing your teeth and all that, right? Well, no, we're not that bad. Like, come on,
Yeah.
they're performing really well.
So with that, for that exact reason, Kevin, I think that Utah beating UCLA here after the two of them have decided to move on, I think Utah is going to beat UCLA just because that's the way that the universe works, right? They're too good for the Pac-12. Pac-12 stinks. And so we're going to have a Pac-12 championship where maybe USC starts to fall apart and it doesn't end up being either of those teams that are too good and heading off to the Big Ten. So I'm going to take Utah here.
Well, what's their sign? Are they Cancer or Sagittarius? That's not the way the universe works in football, damn it, Bobby. The best damn team out there is going to win.
The quarterback at UCLA is at least a fifth-year senior. The running back, Charbonneau, is a fifth year. They've got a great tight end transfer from Duke that's a grad student. And they got, Chip Kelly has taken a little bit of crap over the years, but he can coach, and he's got them going in the right direction.
Those are all great points, Tom, but Mercury is in retrograde, so the universe will win.
Well, I'm going to do my wild card game because it rolls right into this because you got USC playing Washington State. Washington State is maybe a big surprise with everything they've gone through. They are going into the Coliseum. USC potentially, for the same reason, could be overlooking the Cougars, but I don't believe so.
USC is still undefeated, right?
Yes. They're 5-0. Washington State's 4-1. I think they could be overlooking them, but I don't believe it. I think USC holds on this one, but I think it's setting up some really, really good games. And I've got my fingers crossed that someday I can sit and watch a USC UCLA game that means something again, around the end of the year. So I need USC to hold serve here.
It's like their classic conference rival, right? Is it those two, or is Stanford in there somewhere? Or?
Well, but back in the day again, when I talk about that used to be that one weekend, you would watch Michigan, Ohio State at noon, and then at 3:30 I'd watch USC, UCLA, and usually it had something to do with the Rose Bowl, and that just that kind of has gone, the way of the dodo. So I'd like to get that back again.
Nice.
All right, so I'll let Kevin go last because I know that his his wild card game that he'll be picking, and I don't know who he's going to take, is probably the most iconic of the week, but because they're two unranked teams, no one's talking about him. So I'm going to do BYU over Notre Dame. BYU's ranked 16th. Notre Dame is favored, if you talk to Vegas, but they put points up last week against North Carolina. Anyone can put up points against North Carolina. I think BYU, it's at
South Bend.
It's in South Bend, but I still think BYU is going to win. Dad, do you remember you and I went to a Notre Dame game against BYU, and I believe BYU won, didn't they?
They did.
So I'm taking BYU over Notre Dame for my pick.
Yeah, I can't wait till I get to move back to Michigan because I really want to go to some Notre Dame. And Mel was asking, hey, can we go to Western games when we live there? Can we get Western tickets? I'm like, why? Get Michigan State tickets. It's an hour and a half away. And when they're not at home, go to Ann Arbor, go to South Bend, go to or go to Western too. I'd love to watch any football, but
yeah, South Bend's not a bad trip, from us. So it's I would enjoy to go to that game.
Yeah, my pick'em is going to be, like Bobby said, two unranked teams that I think are had high expectations. One of them probably. I think both of them probably still think they can creep their way back into the top 15, but we're talking the Red River rivalry, right? So Oklahoma and Texas. Oklahoma coming off 2 losses, right?
Yes.
And both upsets.
Yeah, not to powers, to Kansas State and TCU.
Yeah. And the TCU one I think was obviously like just a shellacking. Texas, coming into the game, the question is Hudson Card going to start? Is Quinn Ewers going to be ready? If he is ready, is he going to start? I'm going to go with Texas in this game. I'm a Brent Venables fan. I really want him to succeed there. I like his demeanor, I like his attitude. I think he's going to bring some legit defense to the Big 12 like we've talked about, and with Jeff Lebby, a high-powered offense. But I really think I debated hedging my bets and saying if Quinn Ewers starts, it's Texas. If Hudson Card, it's Oklahoma. I'm not a Texas fan. I don't like him since they fired Charlie Strong, but I'm going with Texas.
Interesting.
Right. Well, we'll have to keep a tab on that. We're gonna have to cut it here. It's a little shorter show today. We're not doing any parting shots, so we'll have some extra good ones for you next time. Thanks for listening to another episode of Tommy on Tap, and we'll see you next week.